Hey, grace and peace. Welcome to Find the Intersection. My name is Paul Dezay, and today is Monday. And on Mondays, we start a new intersection plan. And this week begins with the gospel passage of the parable of the prodigal son, which is Luke chapter 15, verses 1 to 3 and 11 through 32. So we're going to talk about that in a second. I just got back from an amazing weekend at the Walk to Emmaus. If you've never heard of the Walk to Emmaus, it's very, very, very similar to the Great Banquet. It's a 3-day retreat, and it's just an amazing experience. And if you haven't had the chance to do it, I encourage you to talk to me and make arrangements to go on the retreat next year. I'd love that for you to experience what I have experienced. All right, so let's jump into Luke 15, 1 to 3 and 11 to 32, the parable of the prodigal son. This story, the context, has to do with Jesus and his interaction with the tax collectors and the sinners. He eats with them, hangs out with them, and it really, really, really upsets the Pharisees, the experts of the law. They're very critical of Jesus, a rabbi hanging out with what they would consider lower life, lower status. And Jesus uses this context, the grumbling of the Pharisees, uses the context to tell 3 stories. The lost sheep, the parable of the lost sheep, the parable of the lost coin, and the parable of the lost sons, or the parable of the prodigal son. And so we're going to talk about that 3rd story, but remember the context. Grumbling Pharisees because Jesus is hanging out with the wrong crowd. All right. So in this particular story, the parable, there are three characters. There is the younger son who does the unthinkable and goes to dad before dad dies and asks for his inheritance, basically saying, "Dad, I wish you were dead. I want my stuff. I want my money now." And believe it or not, the dad says, okay. Now, again, this is a story. This isn't real. This is a story, and it represents, so we have to be thinking this through. In that day, it would have been not really money. The inheritance would have been land. So, you inherit the land, you carry on the family name, and all of that is kind of destroyed because of the younger son's desire to kind of get out on his own. And so the father gives him what he wants, and he goes out, the younger son goes out and spends it all and parties it up, right? And then what I find significant is there's this recognition moment where the younger son recognizes that he's wasted his life. And it's funny that the word prodigal kind of means wasted, wasteful nature, and he's wasted it, and he realizes that he'd be better off for survival reasons to go back to his father, and his father will probably, hopefully, make him a hired hand. Okay, so that's the first character. Second character is the father, and he doesn't operate the way that elders in that culture would have operated. He goes out, when he sees his boy coming, he goes out and runs out to him, which he would have to hike up his robe or whatever and run out to him. And that was an incredibly embarrassing thing to do, to show your legs in that culture. And he did it anyway. In that culture, they would have had a ceremony in which they would have stoned a person who had done what the prodigal son had done. But the father acts in complete opposite, and the father comes and lavishes his love upon his younger son. So the second character is the father, the everlasting love that really communicates the love of God towards all of us, and to the people who society says doesn't deserve it, outsiders, lower social statuses. Jesus finds himself with those people, and the whole point of the story revolves around, I believe, the 3rd character, which is the older son, who is upset because the younger son is receiving a party. Because when reconciliation happens, there's joy. And it's very easy to become jealous of a celebration that isn't involving you. And so the father goes and they throw a party for the entire village, and the older son's upset because, the younger son's getting the attention that the older son believes he deserves. Now, the point of the story is the Pharisees are the older brother. They're selfish. They're upset because Jesus is hanging out with lowlives. Jesus is trying to tell a story through the three parables of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost sons, that the Pharisees are missing the mission of God to save that which is lost. And that's such an amazing story. We could go on, and there's so many nuggets in there that tell about that. I love this story. I love preaching about it. I'm looking forward to talking about it on Sunday at Southside. But it's a great picture of the Father and his love, and Jesus and his love. And for me, the application of this particular passage is I hope I'm not the older brother. And maybe the other way of looking at it is, in what ways do I act like the older brother? In what ways do I get jealous? In what ways do I get self-righteous? In what ways do I think of myself better than other people? In what ways do I think that church should be an insiders club instead of going out and reaching out to people that are in need, that are lost? So anyway, that's it for today. It's good to be back home, and I'll be back tomorrow morning at normal time. Today, I got 12 hours of sleep over the past 3 days. So today has been very much trying to rest and recuperate from the amazing weekend at the Walk to Emmaus. But I should be back tomorrow morning around 9 or so to record the video on 2 Corinthians chapter 15. Hope you have a great week, everybody. I will talk to you tomorrow. Grace and peace.